Oh, thank goodness. You're a hunter, right? Might you know of a safe place? The night is long, and I've very little of the incense left. Please, there must be some nice place to run off to. Oh, thank you, darling. Maybe I'll see you there. Oh, maybe I'll see you.
You? You're not from around here, are you? What, an outsider who's come to join the hunt? What a pathetic idea. You what? What, you think, well, I'll have nothing. What's this? I heard you... Well, she's a... What? Oh, you... Yeah, sort out.
Hello, and welcome back to Bloodborne. This is part 2 of our Beast Cutter run. In case you don't remember, last time we got our weapon, we got our armor set, we got our gun, and it was mostly just a setup phase, just to get everything we needed, and then be able to start here properly. And you may have noticed I was skipping a bit of the dialogue. That's something I'm going to be doing. I'm not going to do it every run, but it is something I'm going to do at least a few runs, especially here just to save some time and just to keep things moving along. But last time we killed Vicar Amelia, again because we needed it for the weapon. And so this time we're going to be starting out by heading off into Old Yharnam. And already I can tell that even though I've almost never used this weapon, I think I've used it maybe once or twice before, it's not going to be super difficult to get used to, because it's not too far away from the Solid Cleaver. It's just a bit slower. Although, this alternate version is definitely very different. It's very good though, very good at taking out multiple enemies. Now, I've heard a lot of people in the past, especially from friends, complain about how difficult dogs are to deal with, but all you have to do is know the timing of your weapon and the speed of the dogs, so that way you can swing as they're coming at you, instead of once they get to you. And once you learn how to do that, dogs are a complete pushover. Just like these guys, when they don't have any help. Now, you're supposed to go here before taking out Vicar Amelia, and there's normally an NPC here, but because I did Vicar Amelia before this, again to get our weapon, he wasn't here. He does have a second location that he goes to, and I know where that is, so we'll get to that in another part. Probably part 3, but for now, he's not here, we won't get to meet him yet, and we might lose out on a small item reward, but that's fine, because the item is just a fire paper, and all that really does is increase our damage. And I was really expecting them to attack her, but they didn't. Well, here we got a bloodstone shard, and these two pots are different colors. Like, the lighting is different. I think it might just be in this one room, that one specific type of pot has, like, different coating or something, but anyways, like I said, we got a bloodstone shard, so that allows us to get our weapon to +3, because, again, we got it to +2 last time. And if we had one more twin bloodstone shard, we would be able to bring it from +2 to +5. But sadly we are missing 1, so just from +2 to +4. But since we got this lamp and we have the materials, we decided to head on over and just cash those upgrades in. So again, just 1 away, which would have been super, super nice, but since we're here, we can get an extra 2 damage and a HP continues to recover +1. That HP recovery, I believe each tick is like 3 seconds-ish, which is a lot slower than in all the other games, which sucks. But it's something, I suppose. But we can also level up.
Welcome. What? Very well.
Since we're here. And skill gives us 0 damage, which is a bit oof. But we don't need it.
Farewell, good may.
Our damage is pretty good as it is. But we can head back to Old Yharnam with that done. And again, just gonna skip a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the notes, at least in this run. And ignore the floaty object.
You there?
But again, just gonna be skipping a lot of the dialogue. There's going to be at least 4 runs. The 4 runs being the 4 weapons that you can get in the starting area, where I'm going to skip nothing and look at everything. Which, the last run being the Threaded Cane, we already did that. But I'm especially going to take my time with the Saw Cleaver, because it is my favorite weapon. And here we get Hunter's Torch, which is very similar to the Torch, just with a bit more extra damage, bit more durability, and better arcane scaling. But, I mean, even if you look at the visuals, they look the exact same. The only real difference is if you want to use it as a weapon or not. Which, not that great of a weapon, but it's an option, I suppose. Skipping that because nothing to climbing a ladder besides climbing a ladder. There's no point to it. But continuing on, make sure to know where all your blood vials are at. And this really surprised me here. It probably shouldn't have really surprised me, but it did. Because I'm so used to this being a 3-shot, that it being a 2-shot kind of threw me off. I mean, I also normally come here with a Saw Cleaver that's at like +2, but still. And here I remembered, oh yeah, I should probably use the alternate version, because in these weapon runs, I want to see how good the weapons are, but gotta learn the timing. But on top of wanting to learn the weapons and see how good they are, I also want to show them off. And not really showing them off if I'm only using 1/2 of it, now am I?
You had.
And while this is pretty slow, I am glad that I remembered to use it, because this is so good at crowd control. Like, whenever I hear people talk about the weapons in Bloodborne, the only time
Which is why I must stop you.
the only time you ever hear crowd control is with Threaded Cane. But my last run was with the Threaded Cane, and I noticed that crowd control is kind of difficult, even with the alternate form, whereas this, it's so much better. Yeah, you get it a bit later, but it's so much better at crowd control. But watch out for explodies, because being bombed is typically not very good for your health. And you can destroy them by rolling into them. They don't explode like that. But here, because this form really impressed me, I went with it again. And yeah, it's good. It is very good at killing multiple things. Like I said, way better than the threaded cane. Which the threaded cane isn't even really bad. It just isn't super standout. And that's something you might notice about a lot of Bloodborne weapons, is it's very rare for a Bloodborne weapon to be bad. Like, I've done this before, where I've beaten Bloodborne with every single weapon class. It's before I started recordings, though. And I did that back in, like, 2018, 2019. And so, seeing as it's the beginning of 2024, it's been a bit. But from what I remember, there were only, I think, 2 weapons that I consider to be bad. And I mean, one of them pretty much no one uses because it's so out of the way that you don't get it until the very end of the game. Let me know if you can guess what that is, because saying end of the game might bring up one idea, but there's obviously a much... Well, I say obviously, but not obviously, because it is a very forgettable weapon, even though it is attached to a not at all forgettable boss. But we'll get to that weapon when we get to that. But here, I typically fight this guy after shooting the guy up top. But I didn't want to shoot the guy up top. But this guy ran away. Still, I was not deterred. And as soon as he saw me going up, he ran down. And so we got some free smacks in. And because he was willing to come down once, I went, oh yeah, we're not shooting Jura, I think his name is up top. I'm gonna kill this guy because our damage is pretty good. And I wanted to see if I could use this form to get him. Because, like the dogs, you just have to swing when they're coming at you. And we already got him beat. And yeah, this alternate form is already proving to be very useful. Especially that heavy attack. Because it stops even hunters and attacks. And it kind of seems like it might give a bit of hyper armor as well, which is pretty nice. And he ran into the fire like an idiot. And oh! And boom. That attack is just so strong. I mean, it takes a lot of stamina, but it's so strong. But with him dead, and like I said, I didn't want to shoot Jura. We can get to why in a minute. But first, we're gonna head down here. And this is when I remembered, oh yeah, I have a torch. Don't know why I forgot about that, considering it's pretty useful here, actually. Not these guys, but the little gremlin enemies are usually scared of the torches and are much less likely to attack you if you have it out. Now, here, they weren't. They were absolutely willing to swing at me. But normally they'll like put their hands up in front of their face and they'll be scared. Don't know why they weren't here, but normally they are. But again, this is the crowd control weapon. People will say that the threaded cane is the crowd control weapon. No. Beast Cutter's the way to go. It's a bit slower, but something I noticed about the threaded cane is it had very little forward range. Like, yeah, it covered a wide area in front of you, but it only went out like 3-4 feet, whereas this goes out in front of you, and it goes a decent way, and that is very noticeable, and it makes a very big difference. Now, I've done a few cuts, mostly to save time. That was not one of them. That was... I don't know. My PS4 did that by itself. That was not me. So, I don't know what that was about, but alright. Now again, I'm not going to shoot him because I normally shoot him with a pistol, and that's good at knocking him back, but since I have the blunderbuss this time, since it spreads out and doesn't do as much damage, it's not nearly as good as knocking enemies back. And so because it's not as good at knocking enemies back, it can't knock them off the ledge, which is an exploit I usually do. Now, you can drop down there if you want, or you can come over here where there's an item, and you can do a run jump over onto that platform. But that's just a little thing for your messengers, and I don't care about that this run, so we took this drop. And the other drop does a lot more damage and puts you in the middle of a room with a bunch of enemies, so this felt like the safer option. And again, this alternate form is so good. That heavy attack, it does take a little time to get used to the timing. Like, it takes a bit of practice, but once you figure it out, it is very smooth. And also you can jump up here. I missed it because I haven't done this in a long time, and so it may take a few tries because you need to hit it at a certain angle, but once you do, you can just AFK here because none of the enemies can get up here because you're not supposed to get up here. But besides going AFK, there's nothing to it. It's just a fun little thing. If you're playing online, people put messages there telling you, like, hey, good job, you did it. And that can be fun. Though, that requires... I forget what it's called. I think like PlayStation Plus. A lot of things have plus on them. Now here I wanted to do one of the transforming attacks, and it didn't like me doing that. But here, they sat around for a minute, which let me do it, which was nice of them. So, good on them. And here, if you knock the fire down, this enemy will cower. And so we leave him alive. That's what the little gremlin guys do if you hold the torch up normally. And that altar is where we ended, I believe, part 2 of the last run with the threaded cane. And we are not even 20 minutes into this one, so making more progress, though obviously that's because we skipped over a lot in part 1, but oh well. But skipping this up to the top, you get a shortcut, and then we can slide back down, which is much faster, thankfully. And then there's a little side path here that apparently a lot of people miss easily. So if you didn't know about this, then there it is. Because I used to play with friends a lot, and quite a few of them missed that. Because I think they just assumed that they were supposed to go somewhere else, and this was like a dead end. I don't know, but yeah, that with them holding their face up, or their hands up to their face, that's because of the torch. Those guys don't fear the torch though, and they will happily sprint at you. They normally don't go up there, which threw me off, but that just means that there's no 1-on-2 here. So we'll take it, And that's a beast blood pellet, which popping that gives you like a bar, and the more you hit enemies, the more the bar fills up, and the higher the bar is, the more damage you do, but also the more damage you take. So, very good for fast weapons, like the Blades of Mercy and Saw Cleaver, and very good if you do, like, no-hit runs, but I'm not super big on consumable items in general, so not really my thing. I have used it in the past, though, especially against the Ludwig, and it can completely obliterate bosses. It's kind of wild. Just looking at a fight that normally takes like 3, 4, 5 minutes and doing it in like 90 seconds, there's a certain appeal to that, but I'd rather learn the bosses and keep knowing them. I like the fight to go on for a few minutes, just so you can enjoy the experience for a longer time. But sometimes items are good, and we grabbed that fire paper for a reason. But this enemy, despite not hitting us, was able to fill up her poison bar a bit. Not entirely sure how. I think I used to know how at one point, but have forgotten. But it's only that one. None of the others do it, which is a little strange. But I've never been poisoned by them, so not a big deal at all. But here's just a little loop around. Just gets you an item and an enemy, and then this is where the ambush happened when we went up the spiral staircase. And so, if you don't care about the item or the enemy, you can just skip that little drop and continue on down. Now, earlier on in this, before making it to Old Town, I mentioned missing an NPC, and if you talk to them, there'd be a summon here, where you can summon them to help you with the boss. And I mentioned it in, I believe, my Halberd run for Dark Souls 3, very recently, that I'm coming in with a new rule that doesn't apply to Dark Souls 1 because I've already recorded all the Dark Souls 1 runs. But I'm only going to do summons 3 times. And so the summon here I can only do 3 total times. And there's like 20-ish weapons. Like, I think 26 weapons in Bloodborne. And so I'll only be able to summon the NPC for this boss fight 3 times. And so not having him here, definitely not a big deal because I want to save those summons for when I have a harder time. But here we throw in antidotes because this boss can poison, and fire paper because even though I like boss fights to last, this boss is dangerous. And so, parry, because parrying is very strong, and they're pretty easy to parry. And I know that this is a very good damaging weapon, and that fire paper also increases your damage, but I was surprised at how much damage we were doing. I didn't think I would do that much damage. Again, it shouldn't surprise me, but I'm just so used to fast dex weapons that don't hit very hard. And like the saw cleaver, and look at that damage! But I'm so used to like the saw cleaver and blades of mercy that anything that hits hard just throws me off. Although, even though it threw me off a bit, it wasn't enough to get me killed. We got poisoned at the very end, but that's fine, there's more antidotes here. And it didn't even take a single blood vial. Very proud of this weapon. I know we upgraded it a few more times than you should, because you're only supposed to be at +3 at this point. But still, I was proud, because that was good. Like, just really good damage from the weapon. And, we're only one upgrade higher than we should be, but still. And here, we can get one more damage. We do lose the HP, but the HP recovery is so small that it doesn't matter. And I do love damage. And here we have 16 insight. And we can buy Hemwick's and Gascoigne's sets. And so I figured, yeah, we can do that to lower our insight, because the more insight you have, the worse things become. And specifically at 15 and 40, things get much worse. But, like I said, single weapon run, and with how I'm doing a different weapon each run, I'm also doing different armor each run, so we can sell all the weapons and armor that aren't dedicated to this run for even more souls, or blood echoes. But something to keep in mind, we killed Vicar Amelia. I know I said it before, but
Welcome. What? Very well.
just keep that in the back of your mind. But here we can get a few levels. And we could level up health and endurance and strength. But I decided to go into arcane, because there are certain hunter tools. And there's one specific one that I really, really like that costs 15 arcane. Or requires 15 arcane. And I decided to go into that, because we're going to get it before too long. And so we put some levels into that, and I figured we can keep going, and we can head on over to the Cathedral Ward.
Oh, don't worry, I'm just... If you've said...
Oh, that. I like all the... Oh, come to.
Oh, you didn't go.
Again, skipping all the dialogue this run, but I won't every run. If you want to hear all the dialogue and whatnot, Threaded Cane, Saw Cleaver, Saw Spear, Hunter Axe. Those will be the runs to look for, as those will be the ones where I can really slow down and look at everything, because I'll be able to get my weapons right off the bat. But with that being said, we can just continue on, and that bullet went almost straight down. And here, I normally lure the enemies out one at a time, but here I ran in without any plan. And as soon as I did that and aggroed all the enemies, I assumed that that was going to end not very well for my health. But no, it was fine. Turns out, all you need to do is have confidence, keep moving forward, keep swinging at the enemies, don't get hit, have a good weapon, and you'll be fine. So, there you go. Just don't get hit. It's easy. I mean, not super easy if you don't know the weapon timings, but I got used to the weapon, like the beast cutter, but still need to get used to the blunderbuss a bit. But moving forward, 2 gunners, watch out for that guy because his rifle very much hurts. But continuing on, up here, on the top of this ladder, we can reach as high as we can go. At least for now. Around here, there is some thick cold blood. So you can get that and pop it whenever you have the time for it. And then inside here, we have one more room with 3 enemies. There is a door off in the back, as you can kind of see, but it's locked for now. We will get to that later on in the run. For now, the reason we came here was to get the Radiant Sword Hunter badge. Because, in case you don't know, badges are like the Ashes in Dark Souls 3 or the Bell Bearings in Elden Ring, where you get them and they allow you to purchase more items in the shop. And that badge specifically allows you to buy a certain weapon that some people really like. But for me, I get it because it allows you to purchase shining coins. Which, what those do is you throw it on the ground, and it's shiny. It serves very little practical purpose, but I'm fond of throwing them on the ground whenever I kill a boss, just as like a sign of respect. And here we got 2 twin bloodstone shards. Remember, when we first walked into Old Yharnam, I mentioned that I was 1 away from an upgrade. And well, there's 2, so that's an upgrade. And here there are these ropes, and you want to roll towards them, and that will allow you to land on this platform, which will then allow you to drop onto this platform, which something died. But that allows you to access this door and get into this little hidden area of the abandoned old workshop. And over here, you may notice this looks familiar, by the way, but moving on, the doll set, very expensive. You can sell it for a lot of blood echoes. The old hunter bone is a hunter tool that I mentioned. That's something for later. This is also something for later. And there's a lamp. Now, there's no point to that lamp, really. And I'm not entirely sure why I got it. I think it was just, I saw a lamp and I picked it up out of habit. I don't know, honestly, but there's nothing there. And if you want to get down here, you can just use the cathedral ward lamp. But this enemy here, outside of this specific location, is an enemy you only see in the Chalice dungeons. Which I think that's pretty neat, because the Chalice dungeons hold some very cool enemies. And honestly, some of my favorite bosses. But a lot of people don't get to see them because a lot of people see the challenge dungeons as boring. And so, that was another, the PS4 did it itself. I didn't do that skip. I'm sorry, I don't know what that was about, but anyways, on one of these runs, I want to go through, like, all the chalice dungeons, not show everything, but just show some cool enemies and some cool bosses. And I think I'm going to do that on the Saw Cleaver run, probably near the end, because a lot of chalice dungeons are pretty high level, and because, as I mentioned before, the Saw Cleaver is my favorite weapon, and it's the weapon I'm the most comfortable with, by far. And so, look out for the Saw Cleaver run if you want to see some cool chalice dungeon bosses without having to go down there yourself. But here, even though I didn't pick up a lot of the items, we did beat Vicar Amelia back in part 1, so we don't need to do that. And I decided, since we have some time left, I want to go through Hemwick Charnel Lane, because there are a few good things there that I want to get, and we probably don't have time to go through the Forbidden Woods. Now, something a lot of people will probably say about Hemwick Charnel Lane is that if you beat Vicar Amelia, then certain extra special enemies will spawn here. And that is just patently incorrect. And you'll be able to see that as I'm going through here. Or you'll be able to see the lack of those enemies at least. Because I understand why people would think that those enemies spawn because of you killing Vicar Amelia, but they just don't. Again, we'll get to that when we get to that. For now, those gunshots do a lot of damage, so you want to constantly stay on the move. You want to know where all the gunmen are, and just stay safe, because their guns do a lot of damage. But they don't have a lot of health, and they're pretty easy to kill, and there aren't too many of them, so like I said, just keep moving, keep your head on a swivel, know where they are, and you'll be fine. Now here there's a group of 4 of them, and so we use the crowd control form, which is just so good at killing things. Like I said, the Beast Cutter, it is the crowd control weapon. No matter how much people say Threaded Cane, no, Threaded Cane was last run, I just used it before this. It is not nearly as good at keeping down crowds. But those enemies that I mentioned, in case you don't know, what they do is they like spawn out of the ground and just claw their way up like a zombie. But they're like shadow people. And one spawns directly in front of this door. But as you may notice, they didn't. And so, if you don't know what spawns them, or if you're someone who thinks that killing Vicar Amelia and turning things into night causes them to spawn, just to clear that up, there's a reason why I purchased those 2 armor sets with the insight. It's because it doesn't have, like, it's not about killing Vicar Amelia. It's about having 15 insight. That's why I purchased the 2 armor sets with insight when I noticed that I had 16. Now, having 15 insight also does a few other things. Mostly in Cathedral Ward, which is also why I got rid of that insight. Because I knew I was going through there, and I knew I was going through here, so... 2 birds, 1 stone. Made both areas safer with that one move. And got myself some more blood echoes. It was just a win-win-win. But... yeah, just keep that in mind. Make sure to have your insight low. But another one spawns here in this like little field area. And if you watched my last run, because I've been mentioning the threaded cane a bit, I mentioned that. Well, I didn't mention it in the video, but I think either in the description or I pinned a comment saying that I was going to try to figure out if I could get my mic to work on console, because it wasn't before. And here I'm doing a voiceover instead of talking as I like recorded. And the answer isn't because I couldn't figure out a way to make it work, it's because I forgot. Ooh, shining coins. Throw one down for him, out of respect. You can see it there. But, yeah, I forgot. And after part 1, I was like, well, I don't want to swap this out and go to a live recording, like, mid-run, so I'm gonna do this with the voiceover after the fact for this run, and then probably for at least the Saw Cleaver run, I'll try to figure out if I can make it live. At least for that run. I'll try to see if I can do it for all the Bloodborne runs after this. That's just a shortcut in case I die. But yeah, at the very least we can have this for now. But with these birds, not this one, but the one over here, in fact, doesn't attack you. And so, throw a shining coin down for them, just out of respect. And these enemies, you can actually roll into them. Not quick step, but you can roll into them. And that'll, like, make them take a step backwards. And so you can get them to stop attacking. And you can actually avoid attacks by doing that. It's pretty good. So, I mean, this area is pretty easy already, so probably don't need a whole lot of advice going through here, but it has saved. They were partially underground, but anyways, that roll has saved me in a few no-hit runs way back when. Now you can go back here and walk across the rafters for an item. Well, 2 items, but I didn't feel like doing that now because I was on a timer. Because Bloodborne isn't on PC, very, very sad. And you can roll into this enemy, by the way. Very good. It can definitely save you. But I don't have a PS5. I don't know if PS5 works differently than PS4. But I'm doing this on a PS4, and it doesn't have OBS. It just has, like, set timers. And so you can record for, like, a minute or 5 minutes or 15 minutes or 30 minutes or an hour. And an hour is the highest it goes. And so starting from the beginning of this, when we talked to, I believe her name is Ariana, the one who gives you curtsy. Starting from there, I had 1 hour to do this. To get as far as possible. Don't mind me tanking those to the face. But yeah, I had an hour, so I was rushing a little bit here at the end. And they try to, like, run out and grab you, and, you know, that ends up being a grab attack. But you can roll into that corner to stop them from doing that. So, again, just... the roll is very nice. Now, I mentioned before, especially in part 1, that I'm not used to the blunderbuss, and so I might get some parries wrong because I just am not used to the timing. And these enemies I already find difficult to parry. And so, if it seems like I'm just gun spamming, that's why. It's a mixture of me not being used to the gun and them being difficult to parry already, at least for me. I mean, I know some people are different. Like, I have a friend who can parry these guys pretty much every time, but has a very difficult time parrying the sages. Like, I can parry the sages pretty easily, but not those enemies, so it might just be a personal thing. Definitely could be. And I don't know if that was them constantly attacking me, or one of them, like, did a jump and landed on a tombstone and then, like, fell, and then falling was stunning me, or what, but that was a little strange, and had a lot of stuns involved. But the Beast Cutter is a very good weapon, so we made it out alive. And when we work with weaker weapons, I'm definitely going to have to be more careful. And as you can see, I used that roll again to stop them from throwing a Molotov. Like I said, just very good. And here, you didn't really get to see it, but I picked up a lake, which gives us a 3% boost to physical damage, or physical defense. Which here, it says physical defense is at 97, which I thought was weirdly low. And so, because, like, most chest pieces have around 100, and so I thought there's no way that takes into account armor, right? Because most armor sets have around, like, 200. Yeah, like 50, 100, 60, 60, yeah, so I don't know if it's just the base defense of your character, or just the armor, or both, but if it is both, that could be a nice little defense boost. Though there are stronger versions you can get later. I believe they're all in Chalice dungeons, though. A lot of Chalice dungeon dropping. But here, another one of these little skittery critters. And more upgrade materials, more insight. And in case you still don't know what I'm talking about, these enemies, like I said, pop out of the ground like zombies. And little piece of advice, do a charge R2 and then a visceral. Not necessarily for the damage. The damage is nice, but it'll help you with the fight later on, getting a visceral early. But as you can tell, that thing that popped out of the ground isn't the boss. Though they really like to stand near the boss, which can make things difficult, as they get aggressive if you get near them. And so, if you really want to avoid conflict with them, this fight can be just a few minutes of staring at them, waiting for them to walk away. But once you get the health bar down to half, I saw that in the corner. But yeah, once you get the health bar down to half, then a new one spawns, as you can see there. And when I mentioned getting a visceral off at the beginning, you may have been able to see the difference. Because this one has no blood on them. And that was mean. But on top of just doing decent damage, whoa, there, that was mean. But again, no blood. Whereas if you do a visceral, it smothers the enemy in blood, which makes it super easy to tell the first one apart from the second. That's why I do a visceral early on, so that way I can tell them apart without having to hit them. So that way I know who to go after, because I know which one has more health. And you might, oh hello, but you may be curious, if you've never played this game before, as to why I'm not just killing those enemies. And the reason is pretty simple. They respawn. The bosses don't. I mean, they can, but be fast, be efficient, and they won't. But these enemies do respawn. Not out in the normal area, but in this boss fight itself, they do. And so if you kill one, another just immediately takes their place. And so there's no point in killing them. Because you kill it, and it's just instantly replaced. And then you just have to deal with another one. And so there's no point to killing them. And so it's best to just keep your distance and avoid them. And before too long, the Witches of Hemwick will go down, because they are not particularly difficult. But with them out of the way, you can head down these stairs, and you can pick up the Rune Workshop tool, which allows you to put these on. So you can get the extra physical defense, visceral attacks can get you some more blood echoes, you know, basic stuff like that. You don't have a lot early on, but the physical defense by itself can be good. But at this point, I knew I was running out of time, so I thought might just go get the final two upgrades here, get it to +6. We can upgrade our blunderbuss. I'll do one to get the gem slot, but that's it. But here, 38 to 46. So that's a nice little jump, and from 0 to 3, the biggest jump in human history. And then this is where we can apply these. Like I said, you won't get any massive buffs early on, but you'll be able to get better ones later down the line. And here, as you can see with the doll set, 7,000, 7,000, 14,000, 7,000. Like I said, very good to get, just to sell it. Because now we're at 80,000.
Well, what? Very well.
So, here I remembered, get the arcane to 15. And then I figured I'm gonna stop it here. This seems like a good time to end it. We got a chalice, we got through Old Yharnam and the Blood-Starved Beast. We got ourselves a torch, and we got our weapon from +2 to +6. We went through Hemwick Charnel Lane, got through the Witches of Hemwick, got a Rune Workshop tool, so yeah.